Hey, welcome to Optimize Your Body with Martin Silva, where we talk raw, uncut facts to truly help you optimize your body.
Good morning, everyone from Sydney, Australia. I am here on my own solo today. It's going to be short and sweet. Lots of super bombs coming at you, right? Whatever that means. So I was supposed to be interviewing someone today via Skype, but it's just been rescheduled. So that's all good. So I am now just going to be talking about my trip back to the UK. I only arrived a few days back in Australia a few days ago, and I've learned so much about myself now because I'm becoming more and more self-aware, which is the key, folks. You know, the more you are aware of anything you're doing in life, the more progress you're going to make, and that's the bottom line. So yeah, I went back home, and it just really kind of cemented in to me how important relationships are. Now, I value my relationships and the people around me and my family, but being the other side of the world, I don't really have my nearest and dearest close to me. They are literally 15,000 miles away over in the United Kingdom. So since being here in Australia, so I'll just give you a quick heads up on my story, if you don't know already. I've been in Australia now, in Sydney, for around about 18 months. I moved here 18 months ago, and I moved over here because I was 29 years old at the time. I'm now 31, and it was coming to the point where I had to make a decision because I was trying to get my ass out to New York to live. I wasn't quite settled in the UK. Wanted to go and pursue a modeling career in New York, you know, the dream, the American dream, if you like. Didn't work out for me. I got rejected. My visa got rejected after waiting for around about a year and spent a lot of money, time and effort. But there we go, that's life. Everything happens for a reason. So I'd always had Sydney in the back of my mind because I travelled here in my early 20s, and I loved Australia, and I never came back. I'd done a few bits and bobs in the UK. I'd made progress in my career, obviously made it to the pro level as a bodybuilder, and really found out, learned a lot about myself during that time back in the UK for the 8 years after I travelled the world and visited Australia for the first time. Anyway, long story short, I decided, right, okay, if I don't get my working visa for Australia, then I'm gonna miss the boat, because you have to get your visa sorted by the time you turn 31. So I thought, right, I'm unsettled, let's go for it. I've got a few mates from my home, from my country, Wales, which is in the UK. A few mates out here in Australia and Sydney. So let's go out there and give it a crack. There's definitely much more opportunity here in Sydney than there is back home in the UK. Tell a lie, there's actually plenty of opportunity in London in the UK. So I'm a personal trainer and model. So those are the two things I was looking to pursue, and also I was looking to get a bit more into acting because I'd done a little bit of acting stuff back home. But since coming out here to Australia, I realised actually it's not really something I want to do. I want to hone in on what I'm good at, and I want to pursue my passion and purpose in life, which essentially is fitness, health, and helping people in that realm, just achieve a better state of health and well-being, I guess. And my expertise is building bodies, building admirable physiques. That's what I've spent the last 10 years doing is whipping people into shape. But I now realize there's a lot more to it than just building the body. The psychological elements, and building a healthy relationship with food, like I mentioned, social connections, in other words, relationships. So yeah, there's so many more elements to it than just merely going to the gym, lifting weights and building the body, because to actually sustain that going forward, you really need to address all of the other factors in your life, because if you're overloaded with stress for one reason or another, whether that's because you're in a job you don't like, or whether you're not quite eating the right foods, you're not sleeping enough, then all of these things are going to actually accumulate, and what's going to happen is something's going to give, and boom, it's going to put a halt to your progress. So since going back home to the UK, I took my girlfriend. I've been with my girlfriend now for 7 months, and she came back with me to the UK. She's Australian. She's from Sydney. We went back, and she met my family and my friends and stuff like that. It was great, and it made me really realize that I've changed so much over the last 18 months. When I was living in the UK, in Wales, I really didn't appreciate... I did appreciate things, but I didn't really appreciate, my homeland, my country, and the people that I love around me. And, I was always kind of chasing the better life, like always thinking the grass is greener. But I guess since evolving as a human over the last 18 months, because, by the way, if you move to the other side of the world or you move away from the people that are close to you, you will learn a hell of a lot about yourself. Because, as I said, actually having healthy relationships and having the people close to you and bonding with those people on a regular basis is very, very, very important for your mental health and for your health in general. So I went back there and had a great time. We were there for like 11 days. And yeah, like I said, I caught up with family. And the good thing is I had a get together with family who, we would never normally do this. For example, there was like 15 of us who went out for a meal. Now, all of us getting together like that it seldom happens. I don't think it's ever happened. Maybe once or twice. Also, my dad was never really around when I was younger, but that's a long story. There's just no hard feelings. He's a good guy. He's a top guy, and we still have a relationship. Long story short, I hadn't saw him for about 2 years, and I met up with him. It was amazing to see him, and I do love him. Despite us not actually having a very a relationship at all, really. When I was younger, that was probably for the best because he was going through a tough time and whatnot. So to see him was great. It was amazing, and I also saw my sister, who I only met when I was 16. Now he had a daughter from his side of the family, and without going too much into the personal stuff, I saw pretty much everyone in my life that was close to me. All of my family, my close friends. Saw my close friends several times. And then since coming back, I touched back down in Sydney on Tuesday night. I've actually really been missing home, and I've actually been going through things in my head, like thinking, did I make the right decision? Why didn't I just, instead of moving to the other side of the world, why didn't I just move from the capital of Wales, Cardiff, to London, which is 2.5 hours away, where there's plenty of opportunity? And I tell you what, that's another thing. My girlfriend and I were lucky enough to go to London for 2 nights, and we stayed in this great hotel in a place called Shoreditch, which is just near the centre of London, where it is absolutely jumping. It's full of like youngsters and stuff now, and the nightlife there is good. Loads of amazing restaurants, very multicultural. But yeah, I've always liked London. I love London because it's just a buzzing city. It's a hot pot. There's like 8 million people living in that city. It's a bit rough around the edges in some areas, which you don't really get much. Obviously, there's some rough parts of Sydney and Australia, but not like London. Certain parts of London now, like for example, the murder rate in London is actually higher than it is in New York now. But something about that, it doesn't feel very safe in certain parts, but there's something about it that makes you feel alive, And I loved London, but we only had 2 nights there, and I wasn't ready to leave. We had to get up really early in the morning for our flight back home. And you know what? I was like, I could stay here for another few nights. I really want to stay here. And I really missed British culture, which I never thought I would. I couldn't wait to get away from Britain. For whatever reason that was. I did, I wasn't settled there. I needed this experience. I knew there was more opportunity in certain places, but I kind of overlooked places like London and stuff because I thought, as much as I like London, don't think I could live there. I want to go where the better lifestyle is. The weather and whatnot in Sydney is much better, which plays a big part in your state of health. By the way, vitamin D, we're deprived of that in the UK because the weather's crap for the most part. But yeah, so without going too much into that, my message to you guys is really spend as much quality time as you can with the people who are close to you, and interact as much as you can with humans, and interact less on social media, because that's another thing. I spent a lot less time on social media when I was away, and I felt so much better every time I do this. Every time I come away from social media and make a conscious effort of spending less time scrolling through Instagram or whatever it is, I feel better. And you know why that is? There's numerous factors which I've gone into before, which I won't go into now. But if you can try and make a habit or make an effort to interact with humans and the people close to you as much as you can, more often than you can, more often than not, and try and stay away from social media. Just try and cap the amount of time you have on social media, because it's really not good for your state of health. I understand if you're running a business on there and whatnot, but seriously, when you're just scrolling through your page, it's doing you absolutely no favors. You're really like kind of looking at this false world, and the bottom line is you're wasting a lot of time on there. We only get one time on this planet, and like I said, my advice to you is to just really appreciate the people you have around you, the people who love you and care for you, really appreciate them, and spend time with them, because since coming back, it's made me realise how bloody lucky I am and how good I had it back home, really. And that's not to say I regret coming here. Look, I've come back here. I'm staying put. I've met my amazing girlfriend here, and things are going really well. You know, I've landed some modelling gigs, which is not really that important to me right now. What's important to me is actually helping people and reaching more people with my message, and getting people in shape, and helping people achieve good health, and sustaining that going forward. So, you know, I started this podcast and it's coming here. My friend and I are now, my friend Andrew Bond, who's featured on plenty of my podcast episodes, are now going to be doing online coaching. Now we've managed to cap our personal training clients a bit more. We're going to get more into online coaching, and going forward, we're going to try and build an online, not try, we are in the process of building an online personal training business and a website with lots of content in there for you guys to access, which is going to be launched soon. So yeah, I found out a lot about myself since being here, that actually, you know, I was coming here to mainly pursue modeling and acting, and just use personal training as my kind of bread and butter, because, you know, I've done that for like 12 years, and that's my area of expertise, if you like. But yeah, I've just realized that since coming here, actually, it's kind of false, really. Being a model and an actor, that's great, and, you know, hats off to anyone who's doing that, and, you know, you can make a lot of money doing that, and if you enjoy it, that's amazing. But it's not for me, really, in terms of purpose, building a purposeful, meaningful life, which is going to be full of fulfillment, if you like. That for me is actually helping people, and using my knowledge and expertise to hone in and become better at what I do, because, you know, I'm never, like, I can't get my words out. I have not stopped learning. You know, as a personal trainer, there is never any point where you go, okay, now I know everything. Constantly learning, even as a personal trainer. So, and just having the opportunity to interview, you know, these influential people all over the world on my podcast is just really, it's amazing, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. So, yeah, so value your relationships. Really, really pay attention to the people around you. If there's anyone around you who is negative energy, negative vibes, and who are bringing you down, having a negative impact on your life, as harsh as it sounds, you've got to cut them off. And the same goes on social media. People you're following who have no positive impact on your life, unfollow them. You know, there's no reason for you to be following thousands of people who, you know, for example, like if there's people, certain fitness gurus you're looking up to, there's no need for you to follow hundreds and thousands of them, because you know, without realizing, you're going to be comparing yourself to them. You're going to be getting all bombarded with all different types of information. The people that are giving you the information which is benefiting you, like myself, joking, but come on, it is. You know, that's the people you want to follow and pay attention to. So, for example, for me, there's in the fitness world, there's only a few people I really, really look up to and follow. One of them being Mind Pump Media. I want to do a little plug for them, because without them I wouldn't have started this podcast. That was the first ever podcast I listened to, Mind Pump Media. You have Sal Di Stefano, the three hosts on there, Sal Di Stefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews, and also, four. There's also Doug as well. Look up to all of them. Follow all those guys and Mind Pump, and that's where I get a lot of my information from. Also, Grenade J, or Jamie Alderton, his real name is, the guy who prepped me for a show. He's putting out some amazing content. Go and follow him on Instagram. It's at Grenade J. And there's a few others, but yeah, they're the main two for me. So that's what I'm saying. You should have a handful, really, of people that you really look up to in any realm, even if it's like financial. In reality, it's great, because there's lots of financially successful people out there who you can follow and learn from, if that's your goal, is to build a, you know, financially secure life. But again, there's so much information out there. All I would say is just try not to overload yourself, because you'll end up paralysis by analysis, they call it. Apply the stuff you learn, apply it to your own life, and if it works, then bloody keep doing it. So yeah, when I do a podcast on my own, as most of you know, I tend to go off on a little bit of a tangent, so just bear with me. But yeah, so as I say, I was, you know, that's it for me. I've realized, you know, before I was back maybe even 18 months ago back in the UK, I was always expecting things to happen, you know, expecting things to fall at my feet. And I guess I learned a lot when I was competing, you know, after failing essentially and not getting the result I wanted on stage in terms of, you know, placing in the top three or getting first place. several times. I was expecting to win. I was going in, I'd put everything into it, got a few things wrong several times, didn't get the result I wanted, and then I learned, you know what, actually, things don't always work out the way you want them to. So stop expecting things to happen, expecting good things to happen, and, life is full of problems, basically, and it's how good can you deal with those problems, solving problems, because you're just going to be presented with one problem after another. I know that sounds a bit grim, but that's those hardships and those obstacles and those setbacks are really what's going to define your character going forward. And having an easy life, if you just want to sit back and have an easy life, I can pretty much guarantee you at the end of it, you're not going to be fulfilled and you're going to be unhappy because, unless you work towards something and find that purpose and apply yourself and constantly learn about yourself and peel off those layers. It's like an onion. You're constantly peeling off layers and layers and layers of awareness and learning about yourself and applying yourself and whatever you're good at, hone in on that and get bloody great at it, because that's how you're going to really succeed. And, and that's not to say I'm really one to preach. I'm not anything. I'm no different to any of you listening to this. I'm nothing special. I'm really not, just like anyone else listening to this. I'm just a guy who enjoys what he does and is trying to get his message out there. So yeah, the tangent is off. Anyway, talking about my trip away, it's really interesting because I think I trained like maybe 3 times in the space of about 2 weeks. And yeah, my advice to you is if you want to stay in shape, or at least stay in a relatively decent shape when you go away on a holiday or whatever, just do the full, even if you don't train the full body. Like I said to you, 80-90% of people are going to benefit much more from training the full body. When you're lifting weights, train every body part about 3 times a week, 2-3 times a week. You're going to get much better results than hitting one body part at a time. So you're only hitting the body parts once a week. If you hit those body parts 3 times a week, hence 3 full body sessions, you're going to get much better results. So for example, I done 3 full body sessions when I was away, and you know what? That kept me in shape. I was eating out every day. I actually, the binge eating disorder, by the way, is very common. So, as I've mentioned to you before, I used to battle a lot from all the competitions and photo shoots and restrictive eating. I developed quite a bad binge eating disorder where I would restrict my food sources to, just eating chicken, broccoli, sweet potatoes, salmon, nuts, and that's about it. Maybe a few other things. And then when it got to the weekend, I would just binge, and I'd done that for years. And I'd done it after shows and after photo shoots, after restricting my food sources, which is really not necessary. It's very important to seek out nutrients, whether or not your goal is to get lean or not, whether you're prepping for a show or not, or prepping for a photo shoot, you should still be seeking out plenty of nutrients. So, like I said, that with the binge eating, I still had quite a few episodes of I would go out and eat a meal, for example, when I was away, and then I was just like, boom, that switch just went. Like I'd eat one sweet thing, and then it would just turn into a binge, and that happened several times when I was away. So, the binge eating disorder is not something which you just shake off overnight. And yeah, by the end of the trip, by the time I got to London, I was still aware, and I was still fasting, so I would still go long periods without food. And I tell you what, one of my saviors were, because I was eating, not a great deal of fruit and veg, especially vegetables. I mean, that's number one for me. It trumps fruit any day, because you get much more fiber and less sugar in, and probably a wider range of antioxidants and whatnot. So I was prepping veg when I was staying at my mother's house, but I still wasn't eating a great deal of it. Organifi, who I love their products. Organifi's green juice and red juice. It's an American company. They're called Organifi. Was my savior. And the same for any of you out there. If you're really finding it hard to get your vegetables in, your fruit and veg, their products taste amazing, the green juice and red juice. And I was having that pretty much every day. And, I didn't get ill. I felt great. And I'm very in tune with my body. So if normally if I'm eating out and I'm eating not the best foods, I start feeling crap, which is inevitable. If you put crap food into your body, then, you're going to feel crap. So that was my savior. I was mixing it together, which a lot of people wouldn't do. I'm mixing the green and red juice together, which tastes a bit hit and miss, but I just know it's jam-packed full of nutrients. So I was having that pretty much every day. And ATP Science, I was using their gut rights and their resilience products. ATP Science, an Australian company. Yeah, I was using that, and yeah, it kept me in good nick. On top of my free training sessions, I felt good. I was still focusing on drinking water and stuff like that. So yeah, but as I was saying, so just appreciation over expectation, guys and girls. You know, the worst thing you can do is really expect things to happen, because I know it's very hard to get out of that mindset. But since I've been over in Australia and I've been practicing gratitude a lot more often, every day I'll go through things I'm grateful for, like 3 things I'm grateful for. I use an app called 5 Minute Journal. I'd recommend getting that. It's really, really good. It's called 5 Minute Journal. And every day, even when I was away, I wasn't using it when I was away, but I was still going over my gratitude in my head. Every morning, it takes me 2-3 minutes. I'll just go through 3 things I'm grateful for, and I will put down three things, or I'm going to put down 1 thing that is going to make today great. For example, smiling more, or helping people. It could be anything, buying someone a coffee, anything, that's going to make today great. It doesn't have to be anything big, it can be anything. But once you train your brain to start appreciating the small things in life, that's when you really start appreciating everything. You really start having a newfound appreciation and gratefulness for everything you have in your life. Because life is fickle. It can be taken from you. Something really bad, like a catastrophe, could happen at any point. So, stop expecting and start appreciating. Yeah, so I guess I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent again. But yeah, so when I was away, I was drinking more alcohol. Occasionally I would binge drink, just like I would occasionally binge eat. Realized once again how addicted I am to caffeine. So I have to have my caffeine hit. I don't have to have it, but I like to have it. I tried quitting caffeine, and I failed miserably. Caffeine is a drug, it's a stimulant. So you do get the release of the neurotransmitters in your brain, such as, the pleasure hormones, such as dopamine and serotonin and norepinephrine, and all these hormones do get stimulated when you drink caffeine. So it is a drug, and I am addicted to it. But there's worse things to be addicted to, right? But yeah, when I was away, like I said, I did have a few binges and stuff like that, and I am human. So just be aware. Like I said, when these things happen, if you binge eat on the weekends, or you binge drink, or you do other stuff, drugs, whatever it is, just be aware of it, and try and learn, why am I doing this? There's got to be an underlying factor as to why you're doing it, and just try and keep yourself healthy for the most part. It doesn't have to be 100% healthy. 70-80% will do. But yeah, so next week I have a guy, you have to stay tuned for this one. I have a guy called Ryan Mishler, and he has his own podcast called Order of Man. Very interesting guy. Much like myself, he spent most of his childhood without a permanent male role model in his life. Having said that, I did have my stepdad and stuff, and some male role models in my life. Not necessarily role models, but male influences in my life. Anyway, he didn't, and the few men that were in his life were less than stellar examples of what it meant to be a man, and that's why he started his podcast. And yeah, so he wants to give men a community and a resource to become better at all facets of life, from self-mastery to family, from money to contribution, and everywhere in between. I'm just reading off his webpage here. But yeah, he's a very, very interesting guy, and very controversial as well, because his thing is, there's so many guys out there now who are cowards, essentially. And I agree with a lot of the things he says. I don't agree with everything he says, just like anyone I look up to. I don't agree with everything, but most of the things he talks about, I can relate to massively. Masculinity, so basically, there's a lot of guys out there who don't accept responsibility for whatever position they're in life. They say yes when they should say no, and they say no when they should say yes. And and I'm not saying that I'm anything special, and that I haven't been guilty of those things. I've done that plenty of times in the past, and I still do occasionally slip up and agree to things I shouldn't. And I'm a coward at times. Yeah, it's just part of life. We're constantly learning, right? Again, it comes down to self-awareness. It's learning about, okay, I just got to step up and be a man, and kind of take ownership and responsibility for the things that I'm doing in life, essentially. So anyway, very, very interesting character, very successful man. He has a very, very good story behind him, and I'm going to ask him lots of questions. Everything from, I've got the list here. I've got everything from, what toxic masculinity is, because this is a talk nowadays that, people are talking about it, and anyway, I won't go too much into that. But leadership, discipline. He's an ex combat. He's ex-military, so I got to learn about leadership, discipline, and the life lessons that he learned in combat. Everything. I'm going to ask him some very, very interesting questions. About embracing suffering. We need to embrace suffering, people. Like I said, about hardships and stuff. If you're constantly seeking those short-term pleasures and instant gratification, you're going to be unhappy, sad, and potentially depressed at the end of it, folks. So you need to be aware that embracing suffering and going through hardships and pain is going to most likely a lot of the time lead to success and purpose and meaning in life. So I'm going to question him on that, and how depression and how, because he has a different view on things. Like, for example, like I said, I don't agree with everything he says fully, like with depression and stuff. A lot of the time he's right, because guys have lost purpose. A lot of men have lost purpose in their life, and therefore end up depressed. So, but a lot of the time there is a chemical imbalance as well. There's numerous factors which come into it. DNA. 50% of your happiness is going to be determined by your DNA. So I understand that a lot of us are more susceptible to depression and mental health ailments, but a lot of the time he is right. It is men have lost purpose in their life, and they end up depressed, low, with no meaning. So it's going to be very interesting to get his insight on things, and I think it's going to benefit a lot of you out there, especially guys, but also women. So, that's the end of that. So to wrap it up, I guess I just wanted to say that, I still have the binge eating disorder. I'm still fully human, because a lot of people I get messages and, how do you do it? How do you stay in shape? How have you got a six-pack? How this and that? Do you maintain your physique all year round? And the bottom line is, I've been lifting weights for a long time. My knowledge is second to none when it comes to, exercise and programming, but also nutrition and sleep and all these things, and just for being healthy for 70, let's say 80% of the time I'm healthy. So you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent with the simple things, right? So, once again, to wrap it up, appreciate your relationships. You're not going to be perfect in any realm, okay? So if there's any takeaways from this podcast, really think about it now. Who are the people close to you? You can probably think off the top of your head of a few people that you really love and think the world of. Spend as much quality time with those people as you can, because I don't see my close friends and family very often at all, and I miss them dearly. And I'm going to cry. Nah, I'm not really. But I do miss them dearly. And seriously, if you have them in the same country, make the most of them, right? Because life is short. And on that note, head over to my website, get your free ebooks. There's loads of freebies on my website. You get a free recipe ebook, and also if you're a vegan, and even if you're not, I've got a free vegan recipe ebook as well. Head over to www.martin-silva.co.uk. When you enter the website, you'll get a pop-up box, enter your email address, and you'll get sent some free ebooks. So head over there, get that, and stay tuned for the next podcast. And whilst you're at it, you might as well go and check out his podcast, Order of Man. Okay, peeps, I'm signing out. Thanks for listening.